Do you struggle to get out in the garden or down the allotment after a long, hard day at work? Are your plants shrivelling in their pots, baking in the sun? Have they flowered and gone to seed before they even got planted out? Or do you struggle to find the time to properly tend to your garden? Before it gets to Monday morning and you decide to fire off that resignation letter, I'm going to show you how my job has affected the garden and compared to last year when I was self-sufficient in vegetables during the summer and autumn. And I'll give you 5 ways of overcoming the challenges that you might face balancing both a full-time job and the work required to grow your own food. The most important ingredient when it comes to growing your own veg is finding as much time as possible to get outside in the garden. That might mean waking up a lot earlier and getting some jobs done before work, or spending the last hour of daylight outside tending to your plants. And while your boss might dictate how you spend your 9 to 5, what you get up to outside of those hours is hopefully up to you. In the winter, you might only be able to do things like starting seeds indoors because it's pitch black outside before and after work. But during the summer it works out perfectly because the best time to do most garden jobs is when the sun isn't beaming down overhead. It's just too hot. However, this is much easier said than done. Last year, when I wasn't working full-time, my beds were perfectly weed-free and the plants received the care and attention they needed. But this year has been a different story. Gardeners love sowing seeds and buying plants almost as much as a manager loves a weekly meeting. But just as there is a limit on how many meetings we can attend before burning out, it's important to be realistic about how much effort we can put into the garden. This year I was far too ambitious, with too many plants to protect from frost, to water and to transplant, which meant I neglected things like weeding, which in turn created even more work that I didn't have time to do. So while I had 6 full garden beds last year and some super early harvests, this year I'm down to 3 beds, while the rest are covered in weeds and volunteers, and my diet is mostly runner beans and courgettes. So while I want to encourage you to grow all of your own food, it's worth considering how many plants you have time to support and then being selective about which plants you grow. And if you work a full-time job, have a side hustle, or are doing something wild with your free time, like running a YouTube channel and a push for time, then picking low effort, high yield plants like courgettes, aubergines and peppers, or climbing beans where the only maintenance required is harvesting food, is going to be a smart choice. When your spare time is limited, it can be easy to have a list of tasks that keeps getting bigger and bigger. But just as you are more likely to pull off doing household chores after a long commute, it can be just as easy to neglect your garden after a hard day at work. This is where we can take a lesson from permaculture. If you've got a plant that you can put in the ground and more or less not touch until you need to harvest, then it doesn't matter if you don't check on it regularly. But if you have a high demand plant like a tomato that needs tying up, removing the lower leaves and suckers, and inspecting for disease, then you need to have eyes on multiple times a week. This is where zoning comes in. By planting high maintenance plants near your access points, you're going to walk past that plant more often and naturally spend more time inspecting the plant, picking off suckers and harvesting homegrown food. By changing where you plant your plants, you'll have both healthier plants and bigger harvests. For example, I put my French beans right in front of my kitchen door because they need harvesting often and while young. And last year I planted my tomatoes right there to help me stay on top of pruning. So if you can't up sticks and move closer to work or find a job nearer your home or allotment and bring down the length of that commute, then considering how much maintenance a plant's going to need when you plan out your garden is going to help you stay on top of it. When writing computer software, you can reduce the number of bugs that creep in by writing tests. And exactly the same thing happens in the garden. Okay, maybe that's one metaphor too far. But recently I did a video about the passive methods that you can use to keep some insects from eating your plants. But another thing that you should consider if you're short on time is growing disease-resistant varieties. If powdery mildew moves in and strikes the courgettes, then it's going to keep spreading and limiting how much fruit is going to be produced. Until either the plant succumbs entirely or you spend time treating it. By picking disease-resistant varieties that are less likely to get infected, it will be less likely that you'll need to put in as much time maintaining your squashes when problems arise. And that means there's more time to devote to unavoidable tasks like pruning and tying up tomatoes or other higher priority items on your backlog. Just as Henry Ford and now ChatGPT are threatening jobs by improving productivity, you can also embrace technology and reduce how much labour you put in to your garden. Things like automatic lawnmowers, watering timers, moisture sensors, even smartphone apps exist to try and make gardening a lot easier. Some of these gadgets are more useful than others and have some very, very different price points, but if I could pick one thing to automate, it would be watering. And as lovely as it is to go running around with a watering can, it can be very time consuming and get tiring pretty quickly, even if you've only got a patio garden. Although watering plants can be a very relaxing thing to do, I personally prefer for it to happen on a timer while I'm still tucked away in bed. Regular watering is also really important for growing plants in containers, establishing young plants, and it helps stop your tomatoes from splitting. So instead of quitting your day job, consider trying to automate as much of your garden work as possible and trying to make yourself redundant in the process. But despite trying all of these things, between my full-time job and producing these videos, I'm growing far less food this year. Even worse, I'm also struggling to find the time to harvest and process it all. So when it comes to French beans, I'm actually growing more bean than pod. And almost all of my salad has gone to the chickens. So can you be self-sufficient while working a full-time job? Ultimately, that's a question that only you can answer.